the entire section that just goes down. So the pit is this little valley that's in here. So all of these are the pits. All right, so then lining the gastric pits is where you're going to find the simple columnar. And we'll move up the magnification here in just a second. But then everything else you see in this, that's going to be your lamina propria. So all this kind of background material. And then the more circular structures that are inside the lamina, these are going to be your gastric glands. Same thing with down here. These are gastric glands as well. They're just not as dark because they're not being replaced yet in the layer. All right, so again, we can't really see, we're not going to distinguish in this one necessarily the goblet cells, although you can kind of see them already in here. But what we're focusing in on are these kind of more column cells that are making their way in the gastric pits, as well as in these sections that are going to become gastric pits. So all of these little more, again, vertical sections on here are the simple columnar cells. And you can see them much better in this microscope. They're going to have a nucleus that is more toward the outside edge, so it gets a lot darker here simply because there's the dark nuclei, and you'll be able to see that better in your own microscope. Okay, let's see if we can find a lymph node on this. I'm not always confident. All right, so from about here up would be the mucosa layer. So from here up. So that makes this the muscularis mucosa right here. So it looks like muscle, but it falls underneath our lamina propria. So we have our muscularis mucosa layer, and all of this would then be the submucosa layer right here. Connective tissue, blood vessels, that kind of thing right here. And then beneath that, we have the stomach. Now, how many cuts of the stomach muscle do we have here? What? Was that? 3. We should have 3. Did you get that? We have 3 of these. You have the circular, the longitudinal, and the transverse. But we really can't tell the difference on this one as well as we can on the other digestive slides. So more than likely on the stomach, this will not be something as important as being on the colon or the ileum. So this is kind of all different kinds of cross sections, but you should recognize it as the muscularis externa layer. Now, again, we'd have to give you some other kind of field of view, and through the microscope, I can see much more of the top of the field of view. So again, to know that it's the stomach, okay, that's the muscle part to it, that's the muscularis externa layer, you should be able to do that. Now, as far as that serosa layer, again, so after the muscularis externa layer, there's another kind of neater boundary to it, and that's going to be your outside boundary, and that's the serosa. All of this. Get another one. All right, so this one, a little better organized in the muscularis externa layer, but let's see if we can find a little bit better. Columnar cells again. So again, each one of these circles here, that's the nucleus, and so each one of these vertical or horizontal cells would be your simple columnar here. So as they move around, those are all simple columnar. So again, the opening would be the gastric pit, and then below that area, more difficult. So all of this kind of background material that goes up this way, that would be part of the lamina propria. The other parts that are more kind of make these circle areas, that would be your gastric glands. are all gastric glands. But then everything else in the background, lamina propria. And then you'll have your, this backs up, well, we have the muscular mucosa layer first, which would be this part here. And then our submucosa. And on this particular one, it backs up to another muscular mucosa layer because it folds in on itself. Because what's in the stomach? What are those?
Rugae.
The rugae.
Rigid.
They're there. Right there.
So it's folded in on itself?
Yeah, on this particular one, on this slide that I took from your box, to see how it's folding in. It's just making all these folds in here. Or down here. So this fold.
What was that again, Professor? I'm sorry.
Just the folds. It was just the submucosal area. All right. Yeah, I really wouldn't worry about the different cuts of the muscular section. Just recognize serosal layer here.
And we still haven't seen the lymph nodules?
I've not seen a lymph nodule yet. Everything else is the same on the ileum. So there is another thing. So instead of gastric glands, because we're not in the stomach anymore, gastric pits, we're going to have villi, villus. So these are pointed projections at the end of the pointer. So your hint page has it on this. It's going to ask for the pointed projections in the pointer. So the pointed projections mean these kind of extensions that are coming off of that mucosa layer. So any of these projections, it would have the pointer here and ask what's the pointed projection at the end of the pointer. And you're going to be looking for villus or villi. If it doesn't have that, it's right here, then we're looking for lamina propria, because that's lamina propria. The pointer is actually on is lamina propria. We also have, again, simple columnar, and I'll zoom in on that, but that's a simple columnar around here. These are the intestinal cells, or intestinal glands, in circles. Everything else, again, the background is going to be our lamina propria. And then there we have this weird thing here. This weird thing is a lymph node. That's what it's going to look like. It's like this area that's void of anything else in the mucosal layer. It's always going to be in the mucosal layer. It won't be anywhere else. But notice that there's no cells in it, there's no glands in it, there's nothing. It just kind of pushes everything aside and takes up the space. So it's a dense area of cellular material that kind of just pushes its way through. So this will be your lymph nodule or lymph node. This will be your muscular mucosa right here. This will be your submucosa. And let's zoom in on those simple columnar. All right. All right, so this whole thing was a villus right here that extends out. These are the simple columnar cells right here, the nucleus, each one. But then there's these kind of blobby things here. These are the goblet cells. The goblet cells are going to secrete mucus. So you're going to have a little bit more in the ileum. We might have been able to see a little bit in the stomach, but that's not something that we're going to ask you about. So we're going to ask you more about that in the ileum and the colon. And one way to know the difference between all three of these is that, again, you have the gastric pits in the stomach. You have these kind of wider looking projections for the villus, or the villi and the ileum. And then for the colon, you're going to kind of look for more goblet cells than anything else, because there's going to be a lot of mucus secretion in the colon. So there's going to be more of these goblet cells, and you can hardly see sometimes the simple columnar unit. But that's the two things we've got there. And all right, so again, we've got our projection, which would be the villus, simple columnar, goblet cells, lamina propria. Any of these kind of sections off or little sections in the lamina propria, those are going to be your intestinal cells. And then you have your muscularis mucosa, lining all that. And then this would be your submucosa. And then we're going to get into the muscularis externa, circular versus longitudinal. Now in this one, it's not fast, but you can kind of see the difference, hopefully, in your appearance. So again, circular would make a circle around the lumen. So this is the circular. It's more kind of smoother looking a little bit. This is the choppy longitudinal layer right here. So all of this is longitudinal. All of this is circular. So circular layer of the muscularis externa, longitudinal layer of the muscularis externa. We would have to show you again something else to trigger a, ooh, that's the ileum, if we were going to ask that. But like this, you wouldn't be able to really recognize it, or we wouldn't expect you to recognize it, is that the ileum. Another thing that we're going to look at that's not on the ileum list, but it's on the colon list, but you can see it here, so I'm going to show it now. This is it's always between the circular and longitudinal. This is that ganglion of the myenteric plexus, that nerve network that sits between the muscle layers to help them move and contract. So this kind of mass of weirdness right here, that's the ganglion of myenteric plexus. And it goes through the whole layer between them. So it kind of keeps going over here. So all of this just follows along. So all of that would be considered part of the ganglion. But we'll see it a little bit better in the colon. The colon tends to be more organized as well in the muscle layer. And again, this is why I don't tell you to, oh, look at the color. So unlike the other ones, this is all the same looking one. All right, so again, you should be able to recognize this, and this kind of looks like the stomach. It's like the stomach, but it's a little bit more disconnected in areas. So that might be something to look for. The stomach isn't necessarily going to disconnect its lining like this. So these again are the point of projections, the villus or the villi, surrounded by simple columnar and the goblet cells. Lamina propria fills up the projections as well as down here. What would these things be? Intestinal cells, or intestinal glands, intestinal cells. And then the very bottom of that would be your muscularis mucosa right here. This layer, submucosa. What was this whole layer right here? Nope, the whole layer. Nope, the whole layer. Sorry. Mucosa layer. Mucosa. Submucosa, muscularis externa. So since we're right here, what kind of muscularis externa is this? Circular. Unfortunately circular. It's always the one after it. I know. You're like, what? You just told me it was supposed to be this way. No. This is awful. I know.
It's always longitude.
It's always circular right after the submucosa.
Okay.
Yes. But it's always going to be circular after the submucosa. So circular layer, longitudinal layer, and in between we have that ganglion going on. So if you can memorize the order, that would be more helpful, I guess, than trying to figure out what it is. These are just all other kinds of, yeah. What is all of this up here?
No, lamina propria.
It's a giant lymph node.
Really?
So see how it just stops the normal look of it, and then it just it voids out everything else.
Wow.
It's a giant one.
So what is it?
Lymph
Lymph
node.
node.
Is that
Because at the very top of it is where we get back to the lining.
Yeah.
So it just kind of shuts everything else out. It grows right up to it, pushes everything away, and here it is again. All right, here's another view of that circular and longitudinal. So circular, we're back to, hey, looking kind of smooth this time. And longitudinal here.
It's just the way it's cut.
It's, yeah. All right, here's another one. Look at this thing. Ooh, what's that? Lymph node. That's a giant one again. Jeez. All right, so in this, again, we would look at something that's still attached. How about that? For the point of projection. So the villi, villus would still be attached to the actual lining rather than out here. It would be attached. Now in this one, I can see a lot of goblet cells showing up there. Very wavy. All right, moving on to the colon. Here we go. All right, this is as dark as I can get it. It's not very good. I'll get another one up there. But this is just kind of show you. Look at all of those goblet cells. Do you see them all? It's like almost all goblet cells. Any of these little things that look almost like adipose, those are goblet cells. So all of this is goblet cells. And then the other thing I want you to notice is at the top, look how kind of straight it is right here, lining the lumen. And our other ones for the stomach and the ileum, it's all been wavy and all over the place. This is more going to be straight across. Not a total straight, but more straight than the other ones. There's not going to be any valleys or anything in there. These are still our intestinal cells, intestinal glands here. The lamina propria is all in between. Our muscularis mucosa layer here.
Where's the intestinal cells?
Where's what?
Intestinal cells?
Any of these circles? Like big circles and stuff.
Okay.
Giant circles. Now in this one, again, it's kind of curved over. So the submucosa is not really that wide until it gets right here, and then it widens out. So that makes this the muscularis externa circular, muscularis externa longitudinal. Horrible. Yeah, because it's twisting back on itself here. This thing, you see it there? You know it's bad. That's going to be your ganglion and myenteric plexus right here. So again, circular, longitudinal.
Is the ganglion always continuous?
It is always
Okay.
So it's more straight this way. You see a lot of goblet cells all over the place. We got our lamina propria in between. Again, think of the lamina propria as like the background again, and you're just putting these glands or the cells in it. This little line is the muscularis mucosa layer. Then you have the submucosa. Again, all of this is the what layer? Mucosa, the submucosa. And then we'll get down to our circular versus longitudinal here. Looks so much better. Okay, so on here, that would be your ganglion. That would be another ganglion. Up there would be be another ganglion. So above it would be our circular layer of the muscularis externa, and below it would be the longitudinal layer. And I really didn't point out the serosa on the other one, but again, it's just this outside layer. It can look very fibrous in a way on that outer lining. Now, this actually has a very good ganglion on the minor plexus. Below, above, circular of the muscularis externa. What's this? Semimucosa. What's that? Muscularis mucosa layer. So our muscularis mucosa layer right here, so mucosa begins there. These whole things are the intestinal cells, intestinal glands. All the background here, lamina propria. All these little circles, goblet cells. And we have a place without the circles right here. What would these be? Simple columnar. Simple columnar. So again, even though we have openings that might look like the stomach, they're not. It's not the stomach. We have too many goblet cells for it to be the stomach. So that's a good way to kind of know where you are. If you have too many goblet cells and you see a whole bunch of these with goblets, then we're not in the stomach. We're in the colon. So you got to be able to look around in the field of view when you look at these scopes. Yeah, no lymph node in this one.